Hello everyone, so here we have our first question that we're going to look at. It's a question that's come in from Kevin. Hi Kevin. I scored 44% in my P3. Last time it was 48%. I wonder if my exam skill isn't strong enough. I hope to find out some suggestion from you regarding what method I should take to pass the paper. From my past sitting, I find out that I can't figure out the answer on some questions during the exam, but the answers just pop into my mind after the exam. No good then. Have I to do all the exercises from the BPP workbook, with doing all of the questions from the BPP workbook and the past exam papers in timed conditions help me to address my problem? So Kevin, we're going to have a think about what would help you to address the problems that you've outlined there. So the problems that we see here, and it's P3, but this would equally apply to any of the discussion-based modules on the ACCA. So Kevin has some problems, and the problems are that he's gone from 48% to 44%. Gone down, that is a problem. He also finds that he finds his mind blank in the exam, but then he can think about it afterwards. And he's wondering if there's some exam technique that could help. So what we're going to do is think about how we could help Kevin with those problems. So the 48 to 44% would imply that maybe there's a little bit of a lack of confidence, that maybe something hasn't gone right during the exam, and that would be supported by the mind going blank. It sounds like you know the content, you're just finding it difficult to get it down in the exam. And you think, well, what exam technique could I do it? So what we're going to think first of all is how to best study then. So for Kevin, how can he approach this P3 to really get to the bottom of the study side of things for it? So what I want you to do, Kevin, is to think of each syllabus area, and each area for P3 has its own particular models. So for external analysis of the business, this is a strategy module. So for external analysis of the business, you'll have your pestle. For internal analysis combined with external, you'll have your SWOT analysis. So for each area of that P3 syllabus, there are some core models. Now you'll have seen them because you've done the exam. You know what I'm talking about when I say those models. The first thing you need to do is to learn them. So you need to learn what they actually are. And that's where the workbook or our lectures or wherever you choose to study will help you. So that will help in learning those. Now, that's only the first step, because what you've got to learn to do is to apply those models. Because P3 is not about learning them. Learning them's a given. If you write out in the exam what a pestle analysis is, what a SWOT analysis is, what any of the models are, you get next to no marks for it. Next to none. So you're not going to get marks for explaining what these models are. You need to know them because you're going to apply them. Now, the best way to do that is to take those models and think about how you could use them in the real world. So, for example, if it was business process reengineering, which is a part of the P3 syllabus, well, think of a business that's done things different recently. I just very recently went to the Apple store to get some hardware. And when I was there, they showed me how to use my phone to simply scan in the barcode and pay with my phone. Didn't even need a credit card or PayPal or anything. It went through the iTunes, my iTunes account, scanned that in, and that was it. Didn't even need a member of staff. That's a business process that's being re-engineered by Apple. And you need to think to yourself, well, what would have the risks been to Apple in doing that? The risk of theft, the risk of people not liking it and not wanting to come back to the store. Things like that, and how they would have integrated that business process into their current systems. All those sorts of things will enable you to take the model and try to apply it to the real world, because that's what P3 is all about. It's not about learning models. The models are incidental. Even if you knew virtually none of the models, you could still get a good mark in P3 by giving good, sensible answers applied to the business in question. Now, for the purpose of the exam, how are you going to find out how the examiner applies the models to the real world scenarios that they give you in the exam? Well, what you've got to do is you've got to go and read the examiner's answers. So, in answer to your question, where you said, well, should I do all of the illustrations in the workbook and then do some past papers under timed conditions? Well, no, Kevin, that's not what you should do, because this means that you know the content, okay? Anything in the 40s, I would say you know the content. It's really your exam technique that's letting you down. So if I was you, I would just completely ignore a workbook of any sort at this point. I would go and print out all of the past papers, all of the past answers, and I would take them one by one and have an attempt at the paper, maybe even in short form bullet points to see what you would have come up with, and then learn from the answers. That's where you're going to learn what the examiner's looking for in the application of those models to the real world. That's where you're going to learn. Don't worry about doing illustrations in a book anymore, forget about it. Or if that gets boring, reading the examiner's answers, take some real world examples. Read a good newspaper, the business section, and see some business that's in difficulties and think, well, how could they improve that? What strategy could they undertake to make their business better? And start to expand your thoughts around strategic direction of a business. We're not really at this level of the ACCA thinking about learning from a book anymore. Okay, we want to know about these models, but we then want to take them and apply them to the real world. Because in a year's time, when you're a qualified accountant, you'll have a client come in to you and say, look, my business isn't doing so well anymore. What am I going to do? And you'll say, well, let's do a pestle analysis and see why the business isn't performing as well as it could. Let's do a SWOT analysis to see how you could deal with those problems. So it's all about applying it to the real world. So no book, just go to the examiner's answers and learn from those when you attempt the questions. Now, when you get into the exam, this is the last part of what I want to talk about here. There are a few key things for exam technique on P3. First of all, identify what the verb is. So discuss, for example, would mean that you'll need to write a little bit more because you'll get 2 or 3 marks for discussing something. You'll need to give one side and then the other. Explaining it will only give you 1 mark, so you're going to write a little bit less. Maybe, Kevin, you're writing too much to explain something and not enough to discuss something. So look at the verb and let that determine how much you're going to write. Then state the model that you're going to use. Now, I don't mean explain what a pestle analysis is. No marks, not going to get anything for that. Say, using a pestle analysis, and then use it, do this bit, apply the model to the scenario that you're given in the question. This is all about the application. So you're not going to get any marks for this bit, really. You're going to get it for the application. How do you make sure you're doing that? State the name of the business when you're discussing it. So, for example, let's say the business is called ABC Company. You say, well, currently ABC Company are facing problems in the market. That's because using a pestle analysis, they have these political problems. ABC is in a country where there's political instability. So keep mentioning the name of the business that you're given in the question, and that will help you to make sure you're applying your answer to what the examiner wants. And really this is all about your business knowledge. So you have to show the examiner that you have common sense. Take your general business knowledge and apply that to the scenario outside of the model. P3 is one of the few exams on the ACCA where even if you didn't know all of the syllabus, by using really good, solid business common sense, you could score highly in it. You might not pass it, but you can score very highly in it. So hopefully by applying all of that, Kevin, that would really help with what you've done. So in summary, basically when you're studying, learn the models, apply the models, and by doing that, you'll understand where those examiners' answers are coming from. And the best place to get that is through your past paper questions, not going back to a book and redoing illustrations. In the exam, check the verb to make sure you're not writing too much or too little. State the model you're going to use, but remember all of your marks are for application, so keep referring back to the business in the question. And remember that this is about business knowledge. Above all else, you need to show the examiner that you have common sense, business knowledge, and you can apply that knowledge in the exam. So thanks very much for your question. Hopefully that will help you out. Let us know how you got on. Post below this whenever you pass, and we'll all have a celebration for you. So again, everybody else, post your questions either down below or on our Facebook site, and we will post answers to the best ones or common questions.